Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn. Okay, welcome everybody. Here we are, Living Chassidus. It seems like this has gotten very popular. Baruch Hashem. So welcome, and here at Living Chassidus, we are locally based in Crown Heights, but as you can see, we've gone global through the help of Zoom, and we care for women in. Originally, we started by caring for women in their shidduchim time period here in Crown Heights, but Baruch Hashem, many of them have gotten married and our programming has expanded. So for everyone who is now making Pesach and preparing for Pesach, we decided to call in one of my favorite people, and she is incredible in many ways. And personally, I consider her to be a friend that I turn to and family here. She really took care of us when we were new and fresh in Crown Heights and have, in a certain sense, adopted our family. And I really appreciate that. Not only is she my personal friend, but she is a friend to so many, and she is a beacon of wisdom and incredible, someone who really I look up to in the way she runs her home and in the way she does the woman's job, so to speak. It's really amazing. So thank you very, very much, Mrs. Eidle Sputz, for agreeing to speak for us tonight.
Thank you. And thank you, Michal. Coming from you, that's a lot of praise. Thank you. But I just want to, I didn't choose the name of the presentation today. So it says something about amazing Pesach cooking. We're just going to leave it as Pesach cooking, and we're going to try and make it the best we can. I'm not promising anything amazing. Before we start, anybody who feels comfortable to turn on their video, that would be great, because I really would love to get feedback from all of you about what you would like to hear. I'm going to start talking, but I know there's quite a few people on, and anybody who can give me the feedback of if there's something more specific you'd like to hear, that would be great. So I'm gonna actually start. I'm sitting here in my Pesach kitchen, and I did this specially because I want to start out by saying that I know that most people actually don't have a Pesach kitchen. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about is prep that happens before, and I don't take for granted the fact that many people are not going to have days and days to prepare before. For me, it's always been a priority because it helps me keep calm if I could start to cook before the rest of my house is ready. But I know that that is a huge bracha that I'm able to have that space. And so if I talk about advanced prep, you can just, tell me to qualify it with things that you could do closer to Pesach. That being said, I wasn't planning, and I'm not planning really to give specific recipes tonight. I'm happy to, if people want to ask me, I'm happy to send, but I think tonight is more about empowering everybody by giving you all the general science behind things, the general idea of taking ingredients that we take for granted. They're in our kitchens all year, but we don't really realize the power of them until we're left with fewer and fewer ingredients to cook with. And then we have to start scrounging and figuring out, okay, how are we going to make sure that our food is as tasty as possible and as full of flavor as possible when we're so limited with ingredients? And that's always my challenge when I'm thinking of Pesach. I like foods with high flavor, and we're so limited in things that we can add to increase flavor that we're really we can start to rely on all the natural stuff that actually some people cook like that a whole year. I don't, but it's always an exciting time for me to try to figure out how to do this. So I'm going to start out with some basic, I guess, hacks or techniques that just everybody can keep in mind that when you're making your regular stuff that you would always make, just some things to think about to make things more flavorful. The first thing is to talk about roasting. Anything that you roast will make the flavor more intense. So if you're going to do a soup, if you roast the bones, for example, my chicken soup, I roast beef bones and chicken bones before, and it makes the flavor a lot more intense. The same with any kinds of vegetables that you're using. When you roast it, it brings out the natural sugar, and it also just makes the flavor more intense. So anything that you're planning to make, if you can take a little bit of time before to roast it, it'll bring out a lot of the flavors. I use a lot of onions, sauteed onions, that adds a sweetness to it and also like a depth of flavor. We did for many years use boiled sugar until my oldest son decided that he wanted to stop using sugar. So that gave me like an additional kind of challenge. And so I ended up substituting sugar. For sugar, I use a very intense apple and pear compote that I make. I cook it down without any water. I just let it cook for hours and hours on a low flame, and that also brings out the sugar, and it's very sweet. If I'm working with the recipe and I want to add a little bit of flavor, I'll put in a few, some spoons of that applesauce, and it's a very, very thick applesauce. It's not like a compote kind of. It's sometimes I'll even caramelize it a little bit if I'm looking for a deeper flavor also, and just use kind of like the sugars in there. For spicy, we use jalapenos. They're very easy to peel. You can roast them also, or you could just use them plain. That's something that we add a lot since some of my sons-in-law joined the family with palates that they love very spicy stuff. So we've started to add that a lot more. For sour, I use lemon juice, but I also sometimes will use boiled down pineapple. Also, in addition to the compote, the applesauce, I will add plums also. And that will also give it more like a tangy type of taste. I do use wine to flavor my food also. Using different kinds of wines will bring out different kinds of flavors. So that's with regards to flavoring, just using whatever recipes you're already making. If you want it to go sweeter, you can add that apple stuff. If you want it to go, different kinds of flavors you can add by adding these things. I play around with thickness of sauces and gravies by adding potatoes, mashed potatoes, or sometimes I'll even like grate potatoes and fry it up together. I'll tell you some things that I did today. And if there's potatoes in that sauce and you're like doing a reduction and you're boiling down wine or stock or whatever, the potatoes will really make it a pretty thick gravy. So that's like the stuff that I use to adjust taste with, because we really only use salt. So those are the things that I use to adjust for taste. Some helpful tips that I found, and this again is if you have the extra time. Cooking overnight, like slow cooking roasts, even I've learned to try to avoid making big pots of things that end up with that black crust on the bottom because it got a little burnt. So I've started to do a lot of things by baking in my oven. For example, I make a ketchup. That's one of the first things I make. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I make a ketchup, and I used to boil it all in big pots until I realized that I was really causing myself a lot more work. So now I just started to put those huge roasting pans in the oven, and I will put all the ingredients in there, and I leave it uncovered and do it on a slow bake overnight, and then it does the same thing, and it actually makes a more intense flavor. So anything, meatballs, fish balls, if they've got a sauce, I started to do it in the oven rather than do it in a pot and just bake it covered. Hi, Kaya. Just have to say hi because I haven't seen you in a long time. And I feel like you could probably give this, but anyway, you'll chime in if you have ideas. Overnight cooking, and also just an idea that I got. Actually, I should have started with this. My sister runs a great Facebook group. That's an incredible resource, and a lot of the recipes can go there. I think it's called Pesach Cooking Non-Process, I think. And it's a great resource for all different. She's very on top of it. She's amazing. She is amazing. And there's a lot of recipes there. A lot of what I'll be talking about, the recipes are there. And it's great for just ideas also. Another kind of hack that comes from one of the contributors on that group is anything that you would like to fry, any kind of thing that you want some kind of a crust, that if you don't use flour and you don't like using lots of nuts, and to me, using nuts means my kids have to sit and shell thousands of nuts, so I try to avoid it. A mixture of egg and potatoes and salt, and that makes a good batter. You put it in the food processor. I think it is 2 potatoes, 1 egg, and then as much salt as you like. And you put it with the S-blade in the food processor, and you make it. You shim it till it's very fine, till it's very like a batter, and then you can dip it in that. So that's something that works a lot. So those are just a few like general ideas, and I'm going to incorporate that as we go along.
Can I ask, since you wanted involvement,
please?
So this egg, potato, and salt. So I missed. This is a batter. Like how? Can you give an example?
So I use it, for example. Today, I made a few things with chicken that I was kind of trying to make like chicken in a batter, like you would make sesame chicken or even chicken marsala. So I dipped it in that. I made eggplant rollatinis. So I dipped the eggplant in that batter before I fried it. So it coats it. It's not perfect, and sometimes it comes off, but it's pretty good. It's actually pretty good. And sometimes I'll add another potato or add another egg, as you see, like as you continue to work and it separates a little bit, or if it comes thin, you can thicken it out a little bit. But yeah, I'll use any kind of thing that you want to fry that makes a good batter around it.
And then there was a question here: are the potatoes cooked or raw?
Raw.
So you basically you peel the potato, you shush it teeny tiny, and then you do the mix it with it.
If you have a food processor, you can put it in the food processor with not the shredding part, the S-blade on the bottom. I cut up into smaller pieces and shim it. I'm sure we could process that, I guess, is the more mature way to say it. Then add an egg and keep doing it, and then it turns into a thicker batter. But now that you're talking about cooked potatoes, my sister does this a lot. She boils potatoes and she substitutes mashed potatoes for flour. And she said it's a 1-to-1 substitution, and she says it works terrifically. So I use that with, she also, that came from her also, to use that in the batter, let's say for blintzes. Instead of adding potato starch, you can add mashed potatoes, and it works really well. People use it in cakes. People use it in anything that you're going to use potato starch for. You can use mashed potatoes and just substitute exactly the same amount as it would be. So if you're like me and you look at a cookbook and it says it's kosher for Pesach, and I don't use any of those ingredients, then that's a good way to substitute that for potato starch. I used to make potato starch. It's very, very easy to make. You can juice potatoes, or you can, some people, squeeze out potatoes if they're making kugels. I like to leave the liquid in. I just think it makes a fluffier kugel, but some people squeeze out that, and then from that liquid, the potato starch falls to the bottom, and then you can pour it off. If there's interest, I'll go to that, you know, at greater length. But since we found out this hack of using mashed potatoes, we stopped doing that, and it's a lot easier. It's definitely a lot easier. So when I'm starting to cook, there are a few things that I make before, so that as I cook, I know that I'll have these ingredients on hand, and whatever I'm making, I can just like pour it in. These are things that I use in lots of things that I'm cooking, and I could just have it on hand. So I mentioned that thick applesauce before, if I want to add sweetness. I make a very, very thick chicken soup. I roast the chicken, I roast bones, chicken bones, I roast meat bones, and I put in a lot of vegetables. It would be better if I roasted the vegetables before, but I don't do that. It's a very intense chicken soup. My kids wait for it a whole year. And it's just got salt as a flavoring, but because I use so many vegetables and I've roasted those bones before, the flavor is just really intense. So when I'm adding anything that needs to have water, I'll put that in instead, or if it's, you know, stock, I'll boil it down a little bit, make it even more intense and add that. It's an excellent flavoring. So I make huge pots full of that. And I also, it's definitely something that's, I make in advance because it does take hours and hours to boil. So that's something I do overnight also. I'll put it on, put it on right, early in the evening and let it boil for hours and hours and then let it cool off. So that in the morning, I'll put it into different containers to freeze it.
Can I ask, so do you freeze like containers worth, and then I guess you defrost throughout the week to use as flavoring?
Right. So I usually leave I make many this size containers. We make about, 15, 20 before Yom Tov, but I will leave one out always to flavor the food. Like today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the things I did today, and hopefully if my tech support team, my son, will be able to pull up the pictures that I took, then I'll be able to show you. But I use it as any time that you need additional liquid. It just makes everything the flavor is much more intense.
What kind of foods do you use it to flavor with?
So if I'm doing, let's say today, so I made chicken masala. So I used wine, but then it calls for chicken soup or chicken stock, so I use that. If I'm making blintzes, I'll pour a little bit into a filling for blintzes. I'll put a little bit into the filling if I'm doing either just a touch, but it just adds a richer taste. So if I'm filling it with chicken, I'll put a little bit in just to moisten it up a little bit together with the onions. I'll boil it down and put it in things so that just a little bit of flavor adds a lot of flavor. If I'm making any kind of vegetable soup, I'll use that instead of water. I'm trying to think what I use it a lot. I poured in today. I made also sweet and sour chicken. I added that in addition to wine and ketchup, and it just it's good. Also, I use it in my roast. When I make roast, I saute onions and bones, marrow bones or meat bones, and I'll sear the roast, and then I'll add chicken soup in addition to some wine, and so it's very flavorful. In regular cooking, anything that you would, many people use stock. I just have it on hand while I'm cooking to add to whatever I want to add flavor to.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, and then, so I have the soup before. I make a lot of ketchup, which I was talking about before. Ketchup, there is a recipe on that Facebook group. I change it around just a little bit because I don't use sugar. I don't boil it in the oven. On the stove, I put it in the oven. But it's apples and onions, tomatoes, lemon juice, and salt. I add a lot more apples because I'm not using sugar. So I add apples and pears and One of my kids is very into ketchup, and he told me it tastes nothing like ketchup, so I shouldn't fool myself. But on Pesach, it works, so that's what we do. So I make a lot of the ketchup, and I'll tell you some of the things that I use in that soon. But I make the soup, ketchup, the compote, and then I'll have some jalapenos on hand just if I want to make something more spicy. Those are the things I start out with, and then I start to cook. I wonder.
Can I just say that thanks to your inspiration, we're actually turning our kitchen over early, or what we consider early. So I'm just saying for everybody, if you'd like, that is an option, and then you can do all these wonderful things.
I feel like it's a toss-up because for some people, turning over early just makes them more nervous for longer. For some people, it makes them calmer because then they can cook for longer. You just have to know yourself. You have to know what makes you feel better, and what it's really if you would rather stay stick for longer, then you're just going to use cook more simple food, and that you're going to know that you did that. That's your way of making sure that you and your family are calm before Pesach. The point is that everybody should just enjoy it and try to. It should be as stress-free as possible. So if it's going to make you happier because you love being creative with food and you like to be able to make different varieties and you're okay being something for longer, then do that. But if that doesn't work for you, then there's really no need to do more. It really, you have to really be honest with yourself and be honest about the resources you have, your personality, your family, and know whether you want to do that earlier. But yeah, I think probably if I didn't have to take the kitchen, I would do that also. But it just depends. Yes, I will tell you about the ketchup. I'm just seeing. I think some people basically I don't have the exact recipe, but there's lots of tomatoes. There's onions. I'll try to get the recipe for you before we leave, but I put it into roasting pans in my oven, and I leave it. Last night I think it roasted for about 4 hours on 300, and then the next day, once you've done that, I used a hand blender, and I processed it, and then you're supposed to pour it back into the pot and let it cook again. I actually found that I didn't have to do that because cooking it in the oven, not covered, had evaporated so much of the liquid that it was really very thick once I had processed it. But if you want to have some thicker or some thinner, if you're going to be using it for sauces, you can play around with that a little bit. If you want to, if it's too watery for you, then you can boil it again. The apples have pectin in it, which is a thickener. So use Granny Smith apples. That gives it that tang. And then you can use, I use, in addition to that, sweet apples and sweet pears to add that sweetness. So basically, either you boil it and then process it with a hand blender, or even you can do it in your food processor. Again, with the S-blade, just pour it all in there and mix it up, and process it till it's a sauce. And then if you want something, if it's not as thin as you would like, as thick as you would like, the more you boil it, obviously, the more intense the flavors and the thicker it's going to be. Is the process the same with marinara sauce? So I actually have not made marinara sauce. I think the difference would be with marinara sauce, it's a lot thicker than ketchup. This doesn't obviously end up tasting like the ketchup that you buy that has lots of additives and extra flavoring. But it works really well on Pesach when everybody's palates, I think, change anyway. I'd have to think about how to make marinara sauce, but I think that probably if you wanted to make something like marinara sauce, I would get vine tomatoes and I would roast them first, and it would have a much more intense kind of tomato flavor. If anybody else has ideas, please share them. So I'm just going to look at the chat and see if anybody has any more more questions. Okay, so the most efficient way to fry or caramelize a lot of onions. Sometimes I will come into the kitchen early in the morning and take out, I have like a few big roasting pans, and I'll just cut up like tons and tons of onions, and I'll do it on the flame. I know that a lot of people that have done this before, also you could do it overnight in your oven. You can take those big roasting pans and put some oil or schmaltz, whatever it is that you use, add it, cover it, and let it slow cook for a while. That is probably the most time efficient to do it overnight in your oven. I forgot that's a good point. Let me see if I missed anybody. Anybody, if you have any questions, just shout out, because I kind of planned for this to be a group session rather than, okay. Somebody asked if something turns blue. I'm not sure. The potatoes, I guess, is that?
Yeah, it was in regards to the potatoes when you're making that batter.
Okay, so they don't turn blue, but they could turn a little rusty, and it's not a big deal. Once you fry it, it does make a difference, and it's just fine. It's 100% fine. Someone asked about making blintzes. This was the one thing that I was thinking maybe I should do a live demonstration, but with my lack, none of it would work, and I didn't think technologically it was the right thing to do. But if you have the Spice and Spirit kosher, the Pesach cookbook, that is an excellent basic cookbook, and that has a good recipe for blintzes. And if you use the mashed potatoes instead of potato starch, then you follow that recipe. It's got eggs and potato starch, and I don't remember something else. Don't remember. The way that we do it in our house, I have 2 frying pans working at the same time. My mother always did this, so to me, this is how you do it. We cut an onion in half, put it on a fork, and use schmaltz, dip it in the schmaltz, and use that to oil the frying pan between each time that we make it. It also gives them a good oniony taste, so it adds extra flavor also. Keep it on a pretty high flame, and we work like, you know, on assembly line. We take the onion, we oil the pan, pour it, we take a measuring cup, I think, depending on the size of your frying pan, but I think I use 1/3 of a cup, pour it in, and then go on to the next one while that cooks. And then as soon as it pulls away from the edge, you know that it's ready to flip, turn it over, and we kind of do that. I don't know if that was clear, but I could tell you again. Let me know if you'd like another to tell you again. But that's how we do blintzes. I do them very, very thin for soup loction, and then cut them as thin as I can, but I'll make them thicker if I'm filling them and I'm using them for blintzes. So that's kind of the crepe. And I add water actually to that mixture when I'm doing it for soup noodles, but when I'm filling them, I'll make it a thicker crepe. I have filled them with chicken. You can fill them with potatoes. You can fill them with, if you want to do like a pulled beef kind of thing. I've done that in recent years where I made the ketchup more intense by boiling it down. I added some jalapenos, and then I have a roast that I made pulled beef with, and people seem to like it. I'm trying to think what other things I've put into it. Some people like making liver blintzes, and some people like to fill it with apples and serve it like as a crepe for dessert. So there's lots of different options that you can make. Just checking. I don't make mayonnaise because we use schmaltz, and I've not been able to. I used to love watching Chaya, your face. I used to love watching my mother make mayonnaise, but we don't use it. And in terms of the chicken soup, to roast the meat and chicken bones, I don't use chicken. I use chicken bones, like chicken frames, but there's enough chicken on them to roast them. And I use meat bones also, neck bones, and I roast both of those, and I put them actually roasted into the soup. SD, I don't have a gnocchi recipe. I saw one going around, but I've never tried it, so I don't want to share it. So I do have one, but if you use potato starch, it'll probably be pretty easy. But if you don't use it, then it wouldn't. So I can't see it working. I don't know if anybody has tried it without. But other than that, it's probably just potato starch, potatoes, and eggs. So I could try to find a recipe and pass it on. So now I think that, let me just make sure that I didn't. Okay, Chaya, if you make mayonnaise or schmaltz, you let me know if it worked. I would love to know. I would love to see that, how that works. I guess it could, right? It's a little scary thinking about it, but I guess it could work. I don't see why not. Okay, so now I was thinking of just sharing some ideas of things that I do. Jump in and let me know if there's anything more specific that you would like, and I guess I'll just talk and you let me know. And if anybody has ideas that they would like to share, I would love to hear. I'm sure that, you know, we always go to other people's tables and like, oh, wow, that's amazing. So anybody that wants to jump in and share, I feel like this is a very informal group discussion. That would be great. Talking about, so with fish, I do regular gefilte fish. I do make a spicy ketchup that I make fish balls in. Again, I do that in the oven. Put ketchup with jalapenos, and I roll the loaf into balls. I defrost it slightly and roll it into balls and put it in, and then cover it and bake it. We make salmon, different kinds of salmon. The fresh salmon with just lemon juice and salt, and then we peel and cut pieces of lemon and put it on top, and it caramelizes when it cooks, and it just looks very pretty. We also make salmon with salsa, with pineapple and mango and purple onion, and that is really refreshing and delicious. I've made tilapia in white wine and onions, and made kind of like a thicker sauce with that. That's also really good, with salt. Anybody else have any fish ideas that they want to share? Anybody? I think that something that I do during the year, you could add jalapenos to the salmon with the mango. Yeah, and that's very good. That is good. If you like spicy foods, which I think you do. That there is, I think that there are a few companies that make a salmon loaf. Looks like the gefilte fish loaf, but it's in the loaf of the salmon. Sometimes I do this during the year, and I was thinking today it would work really well also on Pesach. If you defrost the loaves and you press it into a 9x13, and then you can have layers. You can defrost the salmon loaf and 1 or 2 gefilte fish loaves and press them into the pan. A layer of gefilte fish, a layer of salmon, and another layer of gefilte fish, and that's very pretty. Or you can just do 2 layers if you want. Just a pretty easy way to serve gefilte fish that's a little bit different. Someone asked about peeling jalapenos. They're actually really easy to peel. We have like tomato peelers, but you could really use any peelers, and they're quite robust. They peel very, very easily, and then you can roast them.
Watch your fingers.
Watch your fingers.
Yes.
With the tomato today. Yeah, watch your fingers. But jalapenos are actually the easiest to cook. We do make a jalapeno dip with a lot of peppers and jalapenos, and peeling all those peppers is quite a trick. Have to bribe them with lots of things before we have the troops peeling all those peppers, but it is worth it. So I roast the peppers and add the jalapenos, and we put that in the food processor with some lemon juice, and it's a really delicious, very, very sharp kind of dip for those people that like that. And you can use that also to add flavor to other things.
Question about the gefilte fish. What do you put on the bottom? If you can't put schmaltz, like would it stick to the 9x13 pan?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think that it probably might, like the bottom layer might stick, but you could probably take it out with a spatula. If you use baking paper, you can use that. That shouldn't be a problem at all. And otherwise, the bottom might stick, but you could still get very nice slices out of it, I would assume. So that is the fish. A few ideas for fish. For dips, we make a baba ganoush where I will take, let's say if I take eggplants, I will cover some of them and I will leave some of them uncovered so that they get charred. I'll put them all in the oven together. The ones that are covered end up moist and juicy, and the ones that are charred are pretty dry. But when you mix it together, it ends up having like that smoky taste together with the juicy texture, so it's a good balance. And I use lemon juice and salt to season that, and that's really good. It doesn't look so pretty. And if you don't add mayonnaise, it is what it is, but it's for Pesach, it's very good. I also use that hot pepper jalapeno dip. I use make ratatouille also in the oven, where I cut up a lot of eggplants, either carrots, green peppers if you'd like, and cover it in ketchup and just saute onions before. You can, for the things that I make with fish, I use grape juice to saute the onions instead of schmaltz. So that you do it like on a low flame, and that brings out all of the flavors of the onion, and it sweetens and becomes more intense also. So that becomes a little syrupy. That's the best way I found. Some people saute onions in water, but I'd rather it have a flavor than not. So anything that I'm using for fish, I'll saute in grape juice. I guess wine works also because it'll boil out the alcohol. But someone asked about purple onions. I really don't cook that much with purple onions, but I do use purple onions a lot in salads for Pesach and during the year. Just add. There's a great recipe for a dressing that's got mango and purple onions that you process before Yom that is, I think we're probably going to have to, Michal, put together some kind of cookbook, but we'll work on that and email it to everybody, because as I'm talking, I'm realizing we really should do that. But there are some very, very good dressings that have purple onion and other flavorings that you process. And that's what I generally use purple onion, either as a garnish or part of a salad or in the actual dressing.
There's a great question here, which is, what do we dip those with on the dips?
Oh, so we use, like for fish, you could filter fish, right? I know we're not dipping matzah in, but I just find that on Pesach, everybody just wants different kinds of flavors. They want as much variety as they can of flavor and texture. So as many different things as you can offer, everybody will. But they generally put it on their fish, and and it's and on the last day, the Pesach the matzah gets the. Some ideas for salads, something that I found, and now the name completely just escaped me completely. I add to a lot of things that has a crunch to it, but very little taste. It'll come to me in a minute. But I find that, yes, jicama, thank you, Chaya. It's spelled with a J, jicama, and it doesn't have a taste, but you can add it to any of your salads. Just that gives it an added extra crunch, and I think a lot of people want as much as possible. Yeah, some people put a pizza matzah in their mouth and then put the dip in together, and depends. Some people do that, yeah. So for salads, well, Michal, you were talking about the mango and avocado salad. That's a big hit in our house. And if we want to add, we do mango and avocado. That's the basis. If you want to add onions, we add purple onions. Sometimes we add jicama. I use for dressings, I use a lot of orange juice, lemon juice, and just basic and salt, or that mango purple onion dressing also. Kohlrabi also has a good one. What do I put on salmon before Pesach? So in my husband's family, there's not a difference between how we, oh, you mean for Pesach when I'm cooking before Pesach? I'm not sure of the question. My husband said we don't really differentiate between before and after. I know some people cook differently before and they'll use peels or whatever, but I don't really, so I'm not sure of the question about salmon before Pesach. I'm not sure.
There's a question about jicama. Do you, like, so many of us don't even know what that is. Like, can you give us some rundown how to use it?
Jicama is just a vegetable. It's a fruit or a vegetable, I think, and I peel it and slice it. I take off as much as I need. It's round. Just slice off as much as I need, and you can cube it. You can grate it and add it to. If you're making coleslaw, it just adds like an extra crunch. You can, some people slice it. You can put it really in any shape that's gonna complement the salad that you're making.
So it's raw?
It's raw, yeah.
And you can just put it right in and it doesn't have that much of a flavor.
Right, exactly. It kind of absorbs the flavor that you're using that you're working with. So just, as I said, I feel like on Pesach, people want to, Kai is saying you can also make French fries out of it. That's cool. People want as much as possible just differences in taste and texture and flavor. So that's something that I found is an easy way to just add a crunch to something. There we go. Thank you. Whoever that was. That's great. You can julienne it, you can slice it, you can shred it. And that's it. Right. It's not, I think kohlrabi has a little bit more of a bitter taste. Jicama is really pretty neutral. It kind of, when you're eating, it's like a very, very crunchy apple without the flavor. I don't know, that's how I would explain it. So you could just put it in whatever you'd like. Okay, so then moving along to the soup. Let me see if I can share. Ari, let me get my IT department in. So Simcha, I do find that olive oil does taste, you can taste it when you, frying in olive oil, you generally taste the olives. I guess that the most mild flavor that you can find, the better, but you'll generally always taste it. But I'm sure your kids will grow up thinking that's the taste of Pesach. So one of my kids was talking, she doesn't like Pesach food, and she was telling me today, there's so much about Pesach that is hard for her because she really doesn't like eating the food. She said, but there's so many family memories. So Pesach is kind of like family memories with a very specific smell, because that's the smell of cooking with smell. So, it's not easy to mask the taste of olive oil when you're cooking with it. But, it is what it is. So I'm waiting for my son to come to show, but for the soup, for the soup, we make the lokshen, the noodles that I was describing before. I make very, very thin noodles and I slice them. We get a pile like this high of the crepes, roll them up and slice them very, 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 very thin. That's the lokshen that we make. And then I make chicken balls. And this is something that my family looks forward to a whole year. Ari, you want to help me see if you can find a picture of a chicken ball? They end up looking like knedelach, and I did hear a story that they used to have them in the Rebbe's house, and somebody commented and called them knedelach, and then the Rebbe stopped eating them. So I do usually make an announcement at my table when I serve them saying that they are chicken. They're not knedlach because when you serve them, they do look like they're knedlach. But it uses ground chicken. If the recipe is in the Purple Cookbook, it's ground chicken, potatoes, eggs, onions. I don't add carrots because I like it to look like it's real knedlach, and when you add the carrots, it doesn't look like that. It's a very wet mixture, and I found that the way that it works the best is I take an ice cream scoop. I have the pot of boiling water. I take an ice cream scoop. I fill it with the mixture, and I just I tip it right into the hot water, and it forms beautiful balls. I'll show you a picture of that. No, not that one. That's the pot. That's the one before that. Sorry. The one with all the, well, anyway, it's not, no. Okay. Sorry. But they do end up looking like knedlach, and the trick is that the wetter the mixture and the more potatoes and onions it's got in it, the softer it's going to be. Because some people have told me that they've made them and it's been very hard. That's when it's mostly made out of chicken, and it doesn't have the potatoes and onions, or it's like a thicker mixture, a tougher mixture. Then that ends up the balls end up being very hard. But these are, this is what it ends up looking like. And it's really just, you're not going to be able to form them with your hands because it's a very, very soft mixture. So just use an ice cream scoop, and this is what it looks like. So between
Do you freeze them?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I freeze pretty much everything that I make. Pretty much everything you can freeze. So that's what we put in the chicken soup. And that actually is a meal in itself. So by the time people are finished eating that, there's not a lot of room for other things, but I'm going to give you some ideas for other things that we make also. A few things that we like to make for the main dish. I make roast. The way that I understand it, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, even for the Seder nights, if a roast has been braised, anything that's cooked with liquid is still okay. When we're told that we're not allowed to eat roast at the Seder, it's dry roast. But anything that's been braised in liquid or has a lot of liquid in it. So I do the roast, as I was saying before. I brown onions, I sear the roast. I also usually add bones to it just to make the gravy have a more intense flavor. And I add chicken stock and wine and cook that and roast that. So I do roast. I make chicken marsala.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. Well, actually, first I brown the roast. I sear the roast on all sides. That extra step just makes it have a lot more intense flavor. So I sear the roast, and then I will saute onions together with bones, marrow bones or meat bones, and then I glaze up with some wine and stock. Pour it in, and I cook it also for a long time on 350. It's not so low, but I do cook it for about 3.5 hours. The type of roast that I use, which is I found it to be the most cost efficient and really delicious, is a chuck roast. It does have like a thing of fat in the middle, but it's fine. People eat around it, and it's really fine. It's a very moist roast, and you cut it when it's cold. Like I do it overnight, then refrigerate it, slice it, and it warms up really, really well. Sauce. Do I use eggs in the chicken balls? Yeah, there's chicken, onions, eggs, potatoes, and salt. The recipe is in the book again, and we'll try to put that together for everybody.
Can I ask a question about your bones? I think somebody asked it earlier, but can you give us what can you explain this whole bone situation?
So when I was talking about roasting the bones for chicken soup, some people make chicken soup out of real chicken, and some people use frames or bones. You can buy chicken bones. I use the frame, and I use a lot of chicken bones and a lot of, I think it's neck bones, that's got some beef on it. Just and I roast them first so that they're cooked. They're not cooked, you know. I wouldn't sit down to eat it, but it's cooked, and there's a brown, you know, the bones are like caramelized kind of. They're roasted. But when I'm making the roast, I don't roast the bones first. I'll just cook that together with the onions. So it's a little bit different. How do I roast bones? So if I just put it in the oven and I just I bake it for a while. I'll try to do it usually on around 400 so that I'm not waiting around for a long time. And that's it. They get roasted. Just put it in a pan in the oven. What I was thinking, I was after the chicken marsala. Today I did that. I made about lots and lots of packets of chicken cutlets that I fried. I put it into that egg and potato mixture, and I fried them. And then I divided them into pans, and I made one into chicken marsala and one into sweet and sour chicken. The chicken marsala, I used marsala wine. So first I had the chicken in a pan, put that in a 9x13, and then in the same pan that I had fried that in, so there were lots of like brown bits there, I sauteed an onion. It also had a lot of potato and the potato starch in it from frying everything. I sauteed an onion, and when that was soft and caramelized, I added marsala wine and chicken stock, and then I poured it over the chicken that I had in the 9x13 and covered it and put it in the oven. When you bake that for about an hour, it's really soft and really, really delicious. Again, remember that chicken stock is very rich, so it gives it a really rich taste. With the other half of the chicken cutlets, I made a sweet and sour sauce. So I sauteed onions, and then I added some peppers, red and green peppers. Then I added pineapple, and then I put in sweet wine and some of the ketchup. And let me see if I could find that picture for you. Ari, you want to come help me? Sorry. Let me see. It's very pretty, and it also will be very moist. Everything I find on Pesach, since you want to have food that you can reheat, things that are in sauces are much easier. So I make a lot of things that are in sauces. I can freeze them and then heat them up as needed. I'll try to find that picture. I'll put it up a little bit. So those are two things you can do with chicken cutlets. You can also, if you want to make, I was talking before about a plum sauce. If you have that thick apple compote, like apple butter kind of, and you add, someone had said before that was good, then you add, do a lot of plums. You can make yourself like a plum sauce, and if you loosen that up a little bit, either with some of the ketchup or with some wine, then you can you can make a, you can make you could make like duck, like sesame chicken kind of, like it'll be like a thick sauce on top of it. We also make something that called eggplant rollatini. My niece gave me this recipe and everybody seems to love it. I peel the eggplant and I slice it lengthways, and then I fry it in that mixture of egg and potatoes. And then there's I apologize, everybody. I should have had this done before, but I thought, yeah, whatever. We make a chopped meat mixture that has chopped meat and eggs and onions, and then there's the long piece of eggplant. Put the chopped meat in the middle, roll it up, and then pour ketchup over them. and that is also very delicious. You can do the same thing with eggplants. You can make like a lasagna. You can just layer them, eggplant and meat. You can add mashed potatoes to it.
Do you keep the eggplants raw?
No, we fry them. I fry them first, and then I roll them up because you need it to be able to roll up. And even if you're doing lasagna, you can. Oh, thank you. Okay, good. Eggplant and beef rollatini. There we go. Thank you. Even if you're doing lasagna, I think it's better to do it before, to fry it before, make it just more flavorful. So those are some ideas for main dishes. And somebody had asked about, if you're lazy, do you think you can roast them in slices? Yeah, very possibly. I think you could probably do that. You can also brush them with oil. I would do that. I would brush them with oil and then roast them. It's not only lazy, it's probably a lot more healthy. So that's a good alternative. And somebody else was just telling me yesterday about that they made kind of like, burgers kind of with eggplant round, a slice of eggplant, tomato, a beef, and then more tomato and then eggplant, and then they bake it like that, and it turns into like kind of a burger that you can eat. So yeah, I did say the general tomato sauce recipe, the ketchup tomato sauce, but I'm gonna work with Michal to put that together into a recipe. Somebody had asked about kugels. So here are a few ideas. Well, potato kugel is a staple in our house. You have to have it at every meal. I have made different kinds of vegetable kugels along the way that sometimes they're more popular than others. There are some, again, in the cookbook, some really great shredded. You can use all different kinds of shredded vegetables, carrots and turnips and zucchini, saute onion, and then mix them all together. I found that they haven't been so popular lately, I think. So I think this year we're going to give them a miss. I do make sweet potato pie, where I just take sweet potatoes, add eggs, and you can add pineapple if you'd like to. And I find on Pesach, I just end up serving things in pretty dishes. I bake them in pretty dishes because they're never going to slice as well as you'd like them to. So if you just spoon them out and don't worry about, making the perfect pie-shaped slices, then everybody's fine with it. My sister used to tell me that there was a good recipe on her that she put on her group that had mashed potato as the crust, and then it had all different kinds of vegetables on the inside. So I haven't looked, but I will. And that sounded like a very good idea. Okay, trying to think what else. With side dishes, I generally try to do a kugel and then a roasted kind of vegetable. Again, as I was saying, any kind of vegetables that you roast, put any kind of the fat that you use, if it's olive oil or schmaltz, however it is, just with salt. When you roast them, they taste really delicious. I do roasted sweet potato, again, sometimes with pineapple, sometimes with just sauteed onions. Turnips are really good. You can do a mashed turnip if you're not trying to stay away from a lot of potatoes. Kaya, have you ever tried to make mashed kohlrabi instead of mashed French fries? No. Yeah, I think that the what ends up happening on Pesach is you're serving the same kind of things in different shapes and different presentations. But I think people do appreciate when they see something, different or colorful or, just a little bit different, because we're seeing the same stuff over and over and over again. Okay, and then for desserts, just to skip quickly to the dessert. Let me just see if anybody you've had parsnip mash. Yeah, that's pretty good. For desserts, we generally start out by making ices of a few different colors. And we have had times when we added sugar, but these days what it is we just peel. We do one with watermelon, pineapple, honeydew, cantaloupe. So there's different colors. I've done it with mango before, but you need a lot of mango. We basically just put it in the food processor with some lemon juice, put it in the freezer, and when it's starting to get frozen, we put it back in the food processor and zoom it up again. As many times as you can process it, the easier it's going to be to serve it. So if you could do that, 3 times, that's really good. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, depending on how on our game we are or how bored the kids are. But the more times that you process it after it's frozen, the better it's going to be. I usually serve those in martini glasses and just serve. We scrape it and put scoops in different, in the martini glasses, and it just looks very, very pretty. If you want to get extra fancy, you can pour some champagne or Nura over it, depending on your crowd. That we find that's like our basic dessert. I do poached pears. Again, a very good recipe. It's just essentially boiling down either grape juice, wine. I usually do a mixture of both actually, and poaching the pears, and then I'll take out the pears and reduce the sauce again, and it can end up as a very thick syrup. And they're very, very pretty to serve because it's a beautiful pink. And sometimes I will cut them open and then slice them thin and make them into a fan on the plate and put like a scoop of the ices next to it. So it's just a pretty garnish as well. I actually didn't talk about apple kugels that we make after the Seder. Remember, you can't serve it this week there. You can't serve it Shabbos and you can't serve it Sunday, but Monday you can serve it because it's on the Seder plate. You could do a lot of different things with apples. If you use sugar, you can make using either potato starch or using that mashed potatoes that I was talking about before, and you could just slice potatoes, make a batter, add eggs and sugar and mashed potatoes or potato starch. If you don't do sugar, you can do what I do and just add that concentrated applesauce again and bake it. You can crumble nuts on top of it. If you would like to also, you can whip up the egg whites before you add everything else, and it just makes a fluffier meringue-ish kind of thing. If you use sugar, that's also fun.
Wait, I totally missed that. Sorry.
Okay,
You mean you whip the egg whites first, and then you mix it into the apple.
Yeah, into the batter. Well, if you want, you can. If you use sugar, then do a regular meringue. You can whip the egg whites. I've even done it with liquid sugar. You can whip the egg whites till they're stiff and slowly add liquid sugar, or you can do it with powdered sugar and make a meringue. Add that to the batter, and then it just makes the whole thing a lot more meringue-like. It'll cook like.
And the batter before, we're talking about. What did we do with the apples? Like
slice them, put them in a dish, and then you can pour this batter over it, and it'll make like a apple kugel, but a little bit more meringue. So you can make that an apple cake if you like to at the end.
Magic.
Would love to hear from anybody. If anybody has any other additional hacks or ideas that they'd like to share, because I know this is the time when everybody's looking for inspiration.
Right now, I'm just processing. This is incredible.
I know. We did a lot. We did go through a lot, and I'm gonna work with you on putting out some of these recipes, and we'll send them around.
And so a lot of this can be done. So for example, going back to like the basics that you spoke in the beginning, like the sauteing onions, even if you switch your kitchen maybe a day or two or before, you could still manage some of these things.
Right. And it's also, if you change your kitchen even that day, if you have this in advance and you have a lot of onions, put away. Some people will freeze like little baggies of onions, so they just have them to cook. If you do that prep before, even if you turn over your kitchen very late, if you do these things before, then anything that you make is just going to be that, you know, much more flavorful. So it's like an initial investment of time, and then as if you're turning over your kitchen very, you know, close to Pesach, you're going to be cooking on Pesach. This will just make it go much quicker and make it so much easier. And Simcha, yes, ice pops are an excellent thing. Yes, keeps the kids very, very busy. That's a great idea. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I did try to have some pictures of that.
Thank you so much. There's so much creativity.
My pleasure. Well, we got to try, right?
It's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all this.
Yes, no, my pleasure. So to explain again how I do the ices and desserts with the parents, so I will, we have different colored ices that we can scrape and either I put it in martini glasses with an ice cream scoop, and everybody gets like a scoop of different colors, which looks very pretty, or I'll put it on just a flat, like a small plate. I'll put a scoop of the ices, and then I'll have the pears. I'll cut it in half. So there's like a pear here, and I'll slice it and then fan it out. Slice it thin and then fan it out. So it's a pretty presentation. I don't know. I hope that was clear.
And then, if I understood correctly, you also pour this, like you zhuzh the sauce.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, no, I didn't. I don't zhuzh the sauce.
Oh, you don't?
When you boil, I don't want to have the pears in the sauce for long enough to make the sauce really, really syrupy, because then the pears are going to be very mushy. So after the pears are cooked, I'll take them out, and then I'll reduce the sauce and let it keep cooking until it's more syrupy.
So when do you know when that is?
Well, everybody likes it differently. I don't like it like a thick syrup. I still want it a sauce, but you can see on the texture with you know, just keep checking it to the texture that you want it. The more it boils down, the thicker it's going to be.
And then when are the pears considered cooked?
I'm sure it'll say it in the recipe. I'm so bad with timing, but I'm sure it'll say in the recipe. The chamadina, I wouldn't freeze the pears. I haven't ever frozen the pears, but they do last pretty much from the beginning of Pesach to the end. So if I do it like the day or two before, they've never gone bad on me. I wouldn't freeze them. It'll change the texture of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And the egg loction, how long could that stay in the fridge for?
I actually freeze that right away, and then I put it in the fridge like the night before I need it. It could probably last, I don't know, maybe like 2-3 days, but it's a lot of work. And when a bag goes bad, I'm like, no, it's such a lot of work to have it go bad. So I'd rather just keep it in the freezer. I freeze them as soon as I make them, and then I pull them out as I need them.
And they're not watery? They don't feel watery and great, thank you.
No, yeah. No, also when you put them in the soup, they kind of get refreshed. So they're in the hot soup, they get refreshed.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But no, yeah. It's something that you definitely don't want going bad on you. Such so labor intensive. The recipe for the schnitzel batter, is 2 potatoes, 1 egg, and I think a teaspoon of salt. I put that in the food processor, and then I dip and whatever I'm frying, I dip in it. When I'm doing, so today's batter I was okay with it being more like thinner, because I was anyway putting them in a sauce. When I'm making schnitzel, and I want them to feel like it's really schnitzel, I'll make sure that's more of a thick batter. As soon as it starts going thin, I'll add more potatoes or more eggs, or I'll drain it, because when kids want schnitzel, they don't want it. They want it to really look like schnitzel. It's kind of like, if you have the idea, it's kind of like coating it in a latke batter. That's really what it is. It's potatoes and eggs. And so that's, and then it's not cooked potatoes, it's raw potatoes. But you process it on the S-blade, so it's really a batter. And this year I think I'm going to try and add mashed potatoes to it to see if it's going to make it even thicker. I think it probably will when I'm making like the schnitzels that I'm frying.
So you're using raw potatoes, not mashed potatoes?
So when I was talking before, it's a raw potato, but I think I'm going to add some mashed potatoes to make it thicker again this year. But it's raw potatoes. Again, I would tell you to go onto my sister's Facebook group. They have really great ideas. She's amazing, and there's also lots of people who have very creative ideas. So that's very helpful. That came from there. I don't know about an air fryer. I actually every year say I'm going to finally get it. I don't know if people have used air fryers on Pesach, but I've heard that they're great. Does anybody have one they've used? No. Okay, that could be our mission for this year. We can all try it out and see. But I've heard that they're great. I think you would just do it the same as you do during the year, and I think it takes a very, very little bit of whatever fat you're using, and people make French fries in it. I don't know. I've heard great things about it. We'll get there. Let me just see, because I saw that there were a few questions. I think you can freeze a fruit compote. Yes, I think that you can. The difference with the pears is that you would you want them to keep their shape and their texture. So compote anyway, it's like, kind of falling apart anyway. So you're not so careful about it. So you can you can use an air fryer instead of the olive oil. That's a great idea. Okay, there we go. So,
Wow.
Good. Yeah, I love this. The collaboration. Anybody else have any ideas that they would like to share? No. Okay.
I enjoyed actually a tomato. It's called tomato jam, and you saute. Oh my gosh, I just forgot the name. Those little. It's kind of like onions, but they're little and like connected to each other. They're called shallots. Yes, and it has like a different flavor, kind of like a garlicky take on it.
Yes.
You saute them and saute them and saute them until. Yeah, and then you also do that with the tomatoes, and then you put that on. I do it with salmon, or I do it with chicken, or whatever.
That's good.
Yeah.
I've actually done that just with shallots and wine and boiled it down and made a reduction. That's also really, really good. You have a lot of patience. You have to do it on a low flame, and if you rush it, it gets burnt. You have to do it very, very slowly, but it's worth it. So that really with tomatoes would be also delicious.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much.
My pleasure.
This is really incredible. I came out so inspired, and it seems like everybody else also enjoyed.
My pleasure.
And
sorry for the low tech presentation, everybody, but work on that.
Perfect.
I had some visuals prepared, but anyway. Okay, well, thank you, and reach out, Michal. I think we'll be in touch about putting together some.
Yes, Patricia, we're going to work on that. And if you're up for it, do you mind taking a Zoom selfie with us?
Oh, no. Okay. All right.
You don't have to do anything.
Okay.
So, Bracha, whoever wants to turn on your camera, you can. And Bracha will let us know when.
Okay, just smile. Okay, got it.
Thank you so much.
Nice to see everybody.
I want to bench everybody to have an easy and smooth preparation.
Amen.
Because we're all learning together. We're doing this process together. So it should be easy and smooth, and we should really prepare Begashmis and Baruchnis. That's another piece to that. And everyone should have a kosher and freilich Pesach. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Kosher and freilich Pesach, everybody.